Did you know that in some cultures, it's bad luck to walk under a ladder?
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you yourself carry like a lucky charm for those important occasions.
Mm-hmm.
These little quirks, these superstitions, they seem to linger even in our modern world.
They really do.
So today we're taking a deep dive into why these beliefs persist and what they say about us.
Yeah, that's a fascinating question, and you brought up some great examples there. For this deep dive into the world of superstitions, we'll be exploring some really interesting research
Okay.
on the topic.
Let's unpack this.
Yeah.
I found this quote from H.G. Wells particularly interesting. He said, "All men, however highly educated, retain superstitious inklings."
Right?
It's almost as if he's saying even the most rational minds
Yeah.
can't completely shake off these
Yeah.
beliefs. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's like this innate human need to find order in chaos, right?
Okay.
Research suggests that superstitions thrive in situations where we feel a lack of control. Our brains crave these patterns and predictability.
Yeah.
So when faced with uncertainty, we tend to invent connections, even if they're not based on logic.
So we're hardwired to find a connection even when it might just be coincidence.
Exactly. Think about it. Our ancestors hear a rustle in the bushes.
Okay.
Now, it could have been the wind, right?
Okay.
But assuming the worst-case scenario,
Yeah.
a predator, and reacting accordingly, that's a survival tactic passed down through generations.
Makes sense.
And it really highlights that better safe than sorry instinct
Yeah.
that's hardwired into us, even if it leads to, let's say, some interesting interpretations of cause and effect.
So that primal instinct to find a pattern and react could explain why even today, in a world of science and technology,
Yeah.
we still cling to these beliefs.
Precisely. And it manifests in fascinating ways. Consider athletes and their pregame rituals.
Oh, yeah.
Those meticulously tied shoelaces or lucky charms, they might seem arbitrary, but research like Damish's work back in 2010 suggests these rituals can actually improve performance.
Really?
Yeah.
Just by believing in the power of the ritual?
It's more than just belief. It seems that these rituals can boost confidence and reduce anxiety, allowing athletes to perform at their peak.
Wow.
It speaks to the powerful connection between our minds and bodies.
That's why. Okay, so a little superstition could actually be beneficial in some cases. But is there a point where it goes from a harmless quirk to something, well, maybe a little detrimental?
Yeah.
When do we cross that line from lucky socks to something more serious?
That's the important distinction to make, right?
Right.
Superstitions, by their very nature, rely on what we might call folklore rather than scientific evidence.
Okay.
While a lucky rabbit's foot might not hurt,
Sure.
basing important decisions on these beliefs can lead us down some questionable paths.
So how do these faulty models, as you called them earlier, actually play out in real life?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Imagine a gambler who's convinced his lucky charm will
Okay.
bring him a fortune.
Right.
He might ignore all the warning signs, mounting debt,
Yep.
strained relationships,
Right.
because he's clinging to that irrational belief.
Oh, wow.
This is a classic example of how a superstition, meant to provide a sense of control,
Right.
can actually lead to a loss of control.
That's a cautionary tale for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
It reminds us of how easily we can fall prey to magical thinking when the stakes are high. And it gets even more complicated when you think about the broader societal implications.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Our source material brings up a chilling example, the Salem witch trials.
Right.
It's a stark reminder of how widespread superstition, fueled by fear and misinformation, can have devastating, even deadly consequences.
And tragically, we see echoes of this in the modern world.
Exactly. The anti-vaccination movement is a prime example. By rejecting scientific evidence in favor of unfounded fears, it highlights how easily we can slip back into these dangerous patterns of thought, even with centuries of knowledge at our fingertips.
That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? It feels like we're constantly navigating this tension between logic and these deep-seated superstitious urges. How do we reconcile those seemingly opposing forces?
It's a balancing act, for sure.
Yeah.
It's less about erasing those superstitious impulses altogether. They're deeply ingrained for a reason, right?
Right.
It's more about finding a way to coexist with them.
So not letting the lucky socks rule our lives, basically.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that while superstitions can be a source of comfort or motivation, they shouldn't dictate our major life decisions or eclipse scientific understanding.
Which brings us back to that whole critical thinking thing.
Right.
Like, how do we sort the harmless rituals from the potentially harmful beliefs?
Yeah, it starts with questioning.
Okay.
questioning our beliefs, seeking out evidence, and being open to different perspectives.
Hmm.
Our source material quotes Bertrand Russell here,
Okay.
who said, "Fear is the main source of superstition. To conquer fear is the beginning of wisdom."
That's a powerful statement. It makes you think about how fear of the unknown can drive us to find comfort in those superstitions.
Absolutely. And conquering that fear, embracing a bit of healthy skepticism, a willingness to learn and adapt, that's what allows us to navigate this complex world
Mhm.
with both curiosity and a discerning mind.
Well said. And I think that's a pretty solid takeaway for all of us today. Superstitions are complex, woven into the very fabric of our psychology and culture. They can comfort us, motivate us, and yes, even mislead us. But by understanding their origins, recognizing their potential pitfalls, and embracing critical thinking, we can approach the world with a bit more wisdom and maybe just a touch of that good luck charm on the side. What about you? Any superstitions you hold that might be worth examining a bit closer, something to ponder as you go about your day? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of superstitions.